Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm happy that it's back for 2022, our brand new season 2, I guess you could call it. We're back with the first part of ARCA Racing for 2022, the Daytona Test. It's the annual thing, one of my favorite parts of the year. Fortunately, we didn't do an episode for it last year, so I figured what a better way to start the ARCA season off and the ARCA Racing Podcast off with doing an ARCA Test review video. I'm your host, Colby Evans, at Start and Park Car on Twitter. Go follow me. Go follow our good friends, ARCA Racing. Go follow Menards. Go follow our main man, Brad Smith. And let's have some fun. Let's get into today's show. We also have some NASCAR news to talk about. We'll get to that at the end of the show. We'll kind of save that as the main event. Let's get ARCA, all the news and notes out of ARCA out of the way first. We had the Daytona Test. Now, again, it's an annually thing. Even through COVID, we did have it last year, which was good to see. Obviously, for a lot of these teams, for a series like ARCA, it is beneficial to have the test. A lot of these teams don't have dynos to use. A lot of these cars are built in garages. Not all of these teams have race shops, obviously. And so it's very beneficial that they have this test to make sure all the equipment's running right, all the, the electronics is working fine. And it's fun to see what some teams will bring for a test paint scheme. Test paint schemes are always kind of a thing of the past. And it's good to always see them back on track. We had a pretty hefty fleet of entries. Not the biggest field we've seen. I mean, I remember seeing some Daytona ARCA test fields where we had over 50 cars and over 75 drivers show up in the past. But unfortunately, with the composite bodies, it's just that we're not going to see that again. But I remember seeing a tweet that we said we had 29 cars show up with around 40 to 60 drivers. Don't know if that's confirmed, but either way, hefty fleet definitely for sure. And we'll go over the results. I got them pulled up right here, and we'll go them through race by I was going to say race by race, but I guess test by test theoretically. And then we'll go over the complete results chart first. So as first, we'll go in through Friday's results. Unfortunately, I was at work, so I couldn't. I tried my best to track it around the day. I kept the tab of testing open, but unfortunately, I was very busy throughout the day, so I couldn't really check it all that much. But it looked like some definitely different toppers for the board. But it looks like Greg Van Alst won by a hefty margin, well over a tenth ahead of the field. 184 miles per hour, which, if I'm correct, wasn't that more than, wasn't that about the same of what the next-gen Cup cars were running in a pack? Can someone correct me on that if I'm wrong? But I believe the Cup cars were going around that same speed by themselves or in a pack. I don't know if I'm correct on that. Don't quote me on that, but I believe around the same vicinity. And that's about what the ARCA cars can normally do by themselves and in a couple of car draft. John Ferrier, like I said, it's always good to see John Ferrier back. He's kind of one of those plate racing aces. Doesn't have a lot of money, but always puts together a very nice piece to come out for Daytona. I believe he's also with Jeff McClure. That's kind of a combination effort, but they've been doing that the last couple of years. Good to see that guy's still going. Unfortunately, he totaled his car last year at Talladega, so was hoping that he would still be going for 2022, and luckily he is. Looks like we got Daniel Dye, who right now is my pick for the championship. I know everyone's thinking that Sammy Smith is still going to win it in the ARCA series this year, despite missing 4 races. I don't see that happening. I mean, ARCA has 50-point bonuses and 4 races with ARCA points. That's well over 100 points. Sammy will more than likely not even win every race. So Sammy's not my pick. Daniel Dye is my pick for the championship this season. I was in third. Our boy Willie Mullins. I don't know if he has the mullet anymore, sadly, but he was right behind Daniel Dye. Tony Breidinger. Kind of surprising to me that Tony was this fast. Now, it's not surprising, as the Venturini cars have really been the class of the super speedway tracks for about the last, about what, 5-6 years? The Venturini cars have pretty much won every plate race. I think that's large and due. They're some of the best setup cars as well. They got good drivers. And more importantly, 5 cars will be entered in the race. when you have that many teammates working together, it's hard to beat that, especially with the ARCA drafting package. But good to see that Tony is up there in speed now. My quote for her for Daytona, and it's the one thing that I've always seen said for rookies: stay on the bottom line and stay. That's it. Just stay on the bottom line, follow the car in front of you, even if it's not your teammate. Just stay on that bottom line, stay in the main groove, and you will find your way into the top 10 eventually. Will Tony win? No. But will she get a top 5, top 10? Yes. And to me, that's probably the goal for her, just like what Natalie Decker got was a top 5. Hopefully she will get a top 5, top 10 at Daytona just by hugging the bottom line. I may have accidentally misquoted myself. I don't believe Benarini is bringing 5 cars, bringing 4 cars. So my misinformation. Sorry about that. Of course, we had the 20 car testing with both Jesse Love and Corey Heim. Obviously, even though Jesse Love is not old enough to actually run the car at Daytona, they will let him run the test to get approved. And I like that. I like the fact that even though guys like Sammy Smith, Taylor Gray, and Jesse Love are not old enough to run the race, I like the fact that they're having them run the test. I think that's fair. It gets them some time anyway, so when they are cleared to run Daytona, they already have the experience. I like that. But boy, again, Jesse Love, let's see here. He just turned 17. Boy, I still feel old. So we have both of them. Gus Dean, if you guys didn't hear, Gus Dean is the latest driver to be added to the 55, along with Tom Hezert. It looks like that report by Mark Christie definitely was true, that the 55 is going to be about half the season right now, it looks like, with guys like Tom Hezert and Gus Dean. Gus has been kind of floating around. He drove for I don't think Wintron Racing is in business anymore. They haven't run really any races in a while. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't know if Wintron Racing is really in business anymore. But that's where kind of Gus had been lately. But it's good to see Gus still going again. He's pretty good on the plate tracks. We've seen him be very competitive. Sponsorship just kind of took away his career. He had that one season with Young's Motorsports, but he really didn't go anywhere. And I think that was just because by the time that Young's had went to 3 trucks, they were not ready. They were clearly not ready. I knew Wintron, like I said in the chat, Wintron was working with AM Racing. For people who don't know, Jordan Anderson Racing, AM Racing, Austin Wayne Self's team, and Wintron Racing are all under the same building. It is a former race shop, but I can't remember which team. But another NASCAR team that used to be in the shop before those 3. So interesting fact for the people who didn't know, all 3 of those teams would operate under the same banner. We had, of course, 2 Joe Gibbs cars, or the 2 Go Gibbs drivers, I mean. Sammy Smith, again, who was not old enough, and Drew Dollar, who, even though not a formal announcement wasn't made, it looks like that Drew will be the 18 driver for the 4 races that Sammy Smith is not eligible for. This would mean that more than likely the 18 will not be as dominant as it was in 2021. I think with a guy like Drew Dollar behind the wheel, we'll definitely see, and I'm not taking anything away from Drew's talent behind the wheel, but we're really going to see this year, was it the car or was it the car mixed with Ty's actual talent? Because I think a lot of it was Ty's natural talent. When we see Drew at a track like Kansas, the first Kansas race that I'll be at, that will be the track. That'll be the track that I really feel like we'll test to see if it was the car or if it actually was Ty Gibbs' talent running that far ahead of the field every week. Yeah, we did see with Riley Herbst, he wasn't the best in that 18, that was for sure. Parker Chase, again, another one of the guys who is going to be driving for Venerini. Not sure if he's driving for Daytona, didn't really check his schedule, but we're good to see him in the test. The pizza man himself, Andy Jankowiak, always good to see him. God, that guy's awesome. Met him at Kansas. What an awesome guy. So he's back with the same car. Mason Maggio also tested for him, so that was pretty cool. We had him on the show about a week or two ago. The old man himself, not Wayne Peterson, but the old man who is still going with an old team too, Dave Mater III. And we'll talk about more about Dave when we get to Saturday's test. But it's good to see that even after that second place finish they had at last year's Talladega race, that Jeff Spraker Racing is still going in 2022. You know, been around the business for a long time. And unfortunately, the sponsorship really always hasn't been there for that team. But it's good to see that they're still going. And he'll be, 61, 65, 66 years old this year? And God, Dave Mater, what a beast. What a beast. And he's a threat to win. You know, I mean, honestly, I'll say he's my underdog pick. You know, this team only races twice a year. They only got 2 or 3 cars. So they go for broke, man. But Dave Mater, I'm calling it right now, that is my underdog pick for Daytona. Because they got everything on the line. It's either you win or you crash it. That's what they do. We have, and honestly, also, this is one of the cooler entries for the week. The quarterman, Dale Quarterly, was back. We saw him back at Watkins Glen last year getting dumped by Drew Dollar, unfortunately. But it was also really happy to us because we saw the return of Bobby Gerhart Racing. Now, fortunately, Bobby Gerhart had to retire from racing. I believe it was due to a heart attack. Thankfully, we didn't lose him. God, that would have been really sad if we had lost Bobby, but Bobby's still with us, luckily. Unfortunately, had to retire from it. But it was cool to see him on the entry list. And pictures that did surface of the car is that it is a Bobby Gerhart car. It did have the Bobby Gerhart Racing font on it. And we have a guy like Dale Quarterly driving it. For any fan who's been following the lower league divisions, it's the dream come true. Only people who have been following the league for over 10 years, what then was the K&N series, only people who have followed those series will get that reference, sadly. We have, I've been botching this name. I met this kid at Iowa. He's a good kid. His name is Bryce Hodgeberg. I botched his name every time, but I believe it's Hodgeberg. The team was listed under Bryce Hodgeberg Motorsports, but the car is actually from the Dawson Cram team. It's the same car that Benny Chastain ran at Daytona last year and Talladega, and that Chris Hacker ran at Charlotte. It actually still had the Chris Hacker paint scheme still on the car, just without the sponsor logo, but it actually had the actual paint scheme on it. So it's cool to see Bryce. Hopefully this does turn into something, and hopefully Bryce will actually be at Daytona. It's unclear. Again, this could have been a car just to set up for the test and then run at a different track. Again, the only man who I really feel like will be in contention for the championship next to Daniel Dye, Nick Sanchez. Good to see that team. Obviously, we saw Rev will have more manufacturer support from Chevrolet. I believe also Sunoco. Sunoco sponsored them at the West finale. Sunoco will be sponsoring them for a couple of more races this season. And I would say it's Dye or Sanchez. Dye is my pick for the championship, but it's probably going to be between kind of two of them. Raja, we'll get to Raja in a second. He's a little bit farther down the charts, but we'll talk about him in a second. I don't want to jump to him too early. Actually, he's right under him. I didn't even check the results. He's right behind him. Raja was actually seen running a red car, and honestly, I think that's actually kind of cool. I have Nick run the white car and have Raja run the red car. That way, both Rev cars are kind of distinct. I don't know if it's just because Rev Racing bought a red car is why it was red, but I would like it if they kept the guys in two different color cars, so it'd be a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier to tell them apart, tell the two white cars apart. Raja, obviously he's running full time, but the reason why I just don't see him as a championship contender is he just doesn't have the experience yet. He hasn't had the experience at the plate tracks. Obviously he's got plenty of experience at the short tracks. We know that. But I think it's the short tracks, a track like Pocono, that is really going to hold him back from being a championship contender. I do believe he'll probably finish third or fourth, but unfortunately, I think it's those tracks that are going to hold back Raja from being a championship contender. But never say never. He could surprise me. And that'd be pretty cool to see him win the championship in his first full year. That would be. Moving on. And this is kind of what we saw last year. Lawless Alan running for Nice Motorsports. For 2 years in a row now, we've seen Nice Motorsports show up to Daytona testing with an ARCA car, but they actually haven't run the race, which doesn't bother me a little bit. See, because before the scheduling change, ARCA would be run before the Daytona truck race. And so teams would have to run the ARCA race to get approved for races like the Daytona truck race and the Daytona Xfinity race. Well, now that the ARCA race is after the truck race, all teams have to do is run the ARCA test to get their drivers approved for the truck race. It's a shame because I wish we could have a team like Nice show up for the actual ARCA race when they just have that ARCA car just sitting in the back of their shop for the better part of a year when they got to bring it back out for Daytona testing again. We have Logan Bearden. Now, this was the number 32 team that I mentioned earlier that somebody said that the Wintron team had merged with AM Racing, which they already kind of were anyway. Now, will this team run at Daytona? Hard to say. I think they will. Good to see Logan back. I believe, wasn't he the guy who DNQ'd the 44 Nice truck at Coda last year? I believe he did. I'm not for sure on that, but I believe it was someone named Logan. I don't know. Someone correct me on that in the chat. Next guy, Jason Kitzmiller. Good to see him back again. That's the kind of the CR7 ARCA team. Kind of pretty much depends on the sponsorship, on how many races that team will run. Hopefully they'll run more. Hopefully they'll run a lot more. But it all kind of depends on sponsorship for the 97 team and how many races they'll run. I'll get through the next couple here. We got Chuck Walker, who tested for Young's Motorsports. Jake Drew, the guy who should have won the ARCA West Championship last season, tested for Andy Hillenberg in the 0-1. Amber Balkin tested in the 30 for Reddy Jones, obviously with that being a full season effort. Now, the one thing that I want to see, we saw Rhett Jones Racing, the 30 team last year, run the infamous CGR 005 chassis. The chassis that was involved with the fatal crash of Dale Earnhardt. That chassis ran last year with, God, who was it? She was a woman driver. Oh, I can't remember her name on the spot. I cannot remember her name on the spot. Dang it, this is live and I'm botching it. Brittany Zamora, that's the girl. Brittany Zamora, thank you, I knew it, dang it. But yeah, Brittany Zamora ran that car last year. Is that the same car? I think that'd be a cool story, and I wish we could find that out. That if Amber is running CGR 005 at Daytona this year, I think that'd be a pretty cool story. So hopefully someone can get a hold of Rhett Jones or Amber Balkin and see if they're still running that car, because that, in my opinion, would be one of the coolest stories again. Once again, another year has gone by, 21 years later, and CGR 005 is still going. So hopefully we can get confirmation on that. Another driver for Andy Hillenberg, Luke Fenhouse, who drove for an SRX last year, who's also been a killer on the slinger track circuit. Devin Rouse, who also tested for the Ferrier McClure team. Christian Rose, who tested for the Bruce Cook Racing team. Logan Misuraka, I probably botched that name. I've never really been good with names. Tested for Josh Williams' team. We were supposed to see that her drive with Lear Motorsports in the Truck Series a couple years ago, but I don't think anything never came of that, sadly. Mason Maggio, as I already mentioned, drove for Andy Jankoliak. Max Gutierrez drove Reddy Jones' car again. It's unclear what that plans will be. If Tough Built is still with Max Gutierrez, it'll be interesting to see how many races they do this season. Will it be full-time? Will they go back to the East Series again? That's still unclear right now, as Max has not announced his plans, obviously. Logan Clark, Scott Melton, Mason Diaz, Ron Vandermeer Jr., Dean Thompson. Our man Brad Perez was able to take some laps at around Daytona. Brayton Laster, Mark Lowery, Brandon Varney, Mark Eigeldinger. Again, I'm not good with names. Michael Lira, Blake Lethane, Daniel Escoda, Arnaut Koch, Tony Cosentino, Tanner Allen, Gage Rogers, Ed Pampa, Robert Bruce, Tim Monroe, Jason Miles. And our last two are from the Peterson team, Zachary Tinkle and AJ Moyer. And on the funny part about them is that I believe if Steven and I have been working on a video, that car that Zachary Tinkle and AJ Moore were driving was BDR Bill Davis Racing 65, which will enter its 19th year of service. And so that's pretty cool. It's a Dodge chassis with a Ford body. So gotta love that. Gotta love that. So that was the Friday results. Some teams chose not to compete in the next day results on Saturday, like the Van Alst team. Greg Van Alst team did not participate in the second day results. And hey, if you're the fastest car, I guess you're all set. So it didn't really matter that they didn't participate. We won't go through every car, but just to say, Dave Mater did win the second day of testing. Again, just shows that team, they're only around a couple times a year, but damn, do they bring a good car. So again, Dave Mater's my underdog pick. Chuck Walker showed good speed. Getting second on the charts. Max Gutierrez, Lala Salon, and Christian Rose were your top five. Some other notable names that we didn't mention from the first day of testing was Lane Riggs, a late model driver, tested for Ferrier McClure. And looks like that is it. We had some other drivers test for Andy Hellenberg, including, and if you guys might not remember this show. If you look it up, you'll find reruns, but Malcolm in the Middle star Frankie Muniz, that man himself, ran for Andy Hellenberg in the Daytona Test. And man, go to ARCARacing.com. I cannot do the interview justice, but go to the ARCARacing.com and you'll just see the happiness in Frankie's voice. It's amazing. Outside of being a couple of inches taller and a goatee, Frankie looks exactly the same as he did on the TV show. So that was pretty cool to see Frankie Muniz doing the Daytona Test with Andy Hellenberg. Hopefully he'll actually get to do some races this season because that was cool. People saying in the chat that he was slow. Yeah, he was slow. He's never been around Daytona before. He's probably lifting in the corners. I don't blame him. Daytona's pretty intimidating. Even in an ARCA car, it's very intimidating for a person who's never done it before. Or at least been at Daytona before, it's very intimidating. But he got faster as the session went on. That's for sure. So that was pretty cool to see him go around the track. It's kind of the slower entries we had was the and I hope everything was okay with the Caudell Racing team, Eric Caudell's team. I love Eric. He's one of my favorite guys at the track to talk to. But boy, his cars were not doing the best in the test session. Now, I did see on their Twitter page and Facebook page that they had been having some mechanical issues throughout the week. But they turned in the slowest results for the Saturday's test session. Matt Wilson, Kevin Hinkle, and Thomas Pacheco turned in the three slowest lap times, with Pacheco turning in a 61.28, which was good for just 147 miles per hour. So that does lead me to believe that there must have been some mechanical issues, and I hope that Eric Caudell's team can get it fixed because I love Eric, and I want him to see his team be as successful as they can be. So looking at the complete test results, because they kind of combined the sessions of the fastest laps, Greg Van Alst, John Ferrier, Willie Mullins, Daniel Dye, and Tony Breidinger were your fastest five of the weekend. And it's going to definitely be a good race. We saw that, sorry, excuse me. We saw that Tony was up there. I do think a Venturini car, obviously my underdog pick is Dave Mater, but with 4 cars in the field and some pretty good drivers in the field, Venturini is going to be pretty hard to beat. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Corey Heim go back-to-back. But obviously, my underdog pick is Dave Mater. But my actual pick to win the race yet, I'm not going to announce that until we see an entry list. But that was a Daytona Test for 2022. A lot of fun. It's always good to see everyone come out and have a good old time. It was mentioned Brad did not show up for the test. The plan originally was to likely take the Ford to Daytona testing. I didn't get any updates on why the car, it may have just not been ready. Because remember that Ford, the Ford that was involved in the fatal crash with Hilton, it just might not have been ready yet. You know, that car is, Brad doesn't have a lot of time to work on the cars. And of course, we're still trying to get the engine problem fixed from Kansas. So sorry guys, but I don't know. I don't have any updates on the Ford. And when we get some, I will give them to you guys immediately. But it looks like that pretty much wraps up the Daytona Test for 2022. And I cannot wait for 2023. I might even be down there. I'm trying to definitely do a lot of ARCA races this year and next year. But I'd like to go to Daytona testing in 2023. Also, along with Daytona testing, we also had some ARCA racing news and notes to go over, which we will go over right now. And it does have to do with the Willie Mullins team. You might have heard me mention him in some of the test results. Braylon Laster will drive the 03. Now, that is in conjunction effort with Club Racing. The car will be fielded by the Willie Mullins team, but it'll be using 03 from Alex Club's team. It's a good opportunity for Braylon. I think he'll do a good job. Obviously, being a rookie, you know, again, I'll say the same thing for Braylon that I said about Tony Breidinger. Stay on the bottom line. I don't care if your teammate's on the outside line. Stay on the bottom line, and you will get an easy top 10, top 15 finish. All right? It's that simple. The moment you get out there, right to the back. That's where you're going. And it should note that Braylon's car is chassis Robert Yates Racing -65, which was the car that apparently the chat is saying that ran in the 2006 Daytona 500 with Dale Jarrett. So that was pretty cool. And it should be mentioned that he did drive for Brad Perez, is still looking for a Daytona ride. He said the sponsorship is available. If he can get the ride, he would like to race if the sponsorship, like I said, is available. So shout out to Brad Perez. Hopefully he can get the sponsorship for that he needs to race. But good luck to Braylon. Good luck to the Willie Mullins team. It does have some speculation. Excuse me. Will Alex Club team be full-time this season? Along with Daytona, right now Alex Club team looks to have about 12 other races sold. That would leave 7 races still not set yet for 2022. And again, the way that ARCA pays is by the top 20 in owners' points. So the goal for Alex Club would be to be in that top 20. Now, running 13 races, I think he would still be safe to be in the top 20. But obviously, you want to run as many races as you can just to be safe. And Alex is a guy who does not like to start and park. You tell him that yourself. So they wouldn't show up there for the 7 races just to run a lap and then pull in. But I do believe that team, if they're confirmed for 13 events this year of the 20, that they will more than likely find a driver or find a team to lease the 03 for, to at least fill the car up for the owner's points for the season. So that way they can be in the top 20, of course. And speaking of club racing, it's kind of a two-part news. We mentioned back that Josh White will be running for the team where they announced sponsorship from Kanawa Ammunition. I probably botched that name, but it's an ammunition company. It'll be for the 3 races that Josh White will be running. So some good news for the Alex Club team. And again, I wish them the best of luck for 2022. Alex is a good friend of mine. They got the Ilmore fixed, so hopefully the team will be a lot more competitive. What will the Daytona entry list look like? Now, we have seen reports of this come out lately. My good friend Spencer Gogol and I, who Spencer works for Wayne Peterson, and we've even seen Zachary Tinkle. Zachary Tinkle mentioned this too. Zachary Tinkle actually mentioned that we have 38 on the entry list. If that's the case, wow. That's the biggest entry list we've had in a while. So that would definitely be fun to see 38 show up. Hopefully that's true. But it does beg the question. They will start 40. Will we reach 40? I don't know. And if we reach 40, remember, Wayne is bringing 2 cars, the black Ford and the white Chevrolet. White Chevrolet's got a legacy motor in it. That car can only hit about 168, 169 down the straightaway. No owner points. So it would be kind of sad to see 41 cars show up because sadly that 0 would probably be the 1 car to go home. And obviously none of us want to see Wayne's cars go home. Will we reach the point of a DNQ? I don't think so. But I do think we'll at least reach 40. That would be nice. It would be good to see that many cars, especially with different rookies. But according to Zach, and I believe Zachary is, I believe, running Daytona with a team. That is yet to be announced, and we'll go more on Zachary in a second. But I kind of put in a chat of how many people would show up to Daytona, and I've seen varying reports of around 34 to 41 cars. Those are the numbers I've been seeing float around. Either way, it looks like we're going to have a great field lineup for Daytona ARCA, and definitely should put on a better show than last year. Of course, for everyone who's watching right now, we got 10 people in the chat. If you guys want to hit the like button real quick, that's that little annoying shout out that every YouTuber has to say. So hit that like button if you want. If you don't, I don't care. It gets the video out there more. So just click the like button if you guys want. Yeah, as going into more into Zachary Tinkle, he did announce that he will have an announcement coming. That's what I love. I love when we see we'll have an announcement of the announcement, and then we'll have the announcement. It makes no sense. But we'll have Zachary Tinkle will have an announcement. I've seen rumors that it'll be not for Peterson, but it will be for Fast Track Racing. I think that'd be a good fit. I think that would be a good fit for guy like Zachary. Zachary was very successful in the late model scene. He's not a slow guy by any means. He's a very fast and a very solid driver. And Andy's good equipment. Obviously, it's not top tier, sadly, even though we wish it was. But you get a guy like Zachary in there with a car that's a little bit faster than Wayne's. I think that team could go places. I hope so. But Zachary still might run some races for Wayne, I hope too. Zachary's not going to run full-time, I don't think. But definitely going to try to run, I would say, at least little over half the schedule this season for either Wayne or Fast Track Racing. So that's good to see. And we'll actually get into Peterson is supposedly, from what I've heard from a crew member with Wayne, that Peterson Motorsports will be going full-time this season. The 06 car will be going full-time. It is important to note that the 06, apparently from what I've heard, is no longer, I was told by this by Zachary Tinkle, that it looks like Richmond Racing, the Richmonds, David and Tim Richmond, are no longer affiliated with the Peterson team. It looks like that the Richmond Racing team are going by themselves this year. Tim Richmond, I believe, is all healed up. He will be at Daytona. But it looks like that they are going at it themselves for Daytona. They are using that DGR car they got after the Michigan crash, and it looks like Wayne is back on his own. But Wayne looks like he will be going the whole year, from what I've heard, with funded drivers. And if he doesn't have a funded driver, he'll simply do, of course, the starting park. But when they do have funded drivers, they will run the whole race. So expect the Ford to be used when they have the funded drivers, and then expect the Chevrolet to be used when Wayne's going to do a starting park, because they like to, preserve the black Ford and then keep the white Chevrolet as kind of the workhorse car, where it has to do starting parks or do a full race. That car can do anything. And obviously, you want to be in the top 20 because, like I said, that's when you get paid as well. So hopefully we do see good old Wayne. He'll be 84 years old this year. I mean, Wayne, that guy is just tough. I mean, that guy's tough as nails. That's all I can say. Tough as nails, Wayne Peterson. Love him. As we did mention earlier, Tom Hezert, along with Gustine, will be returning to Venturini along with Gustine for 3 races this season. Good to see Tom back after a couple of years. His career just never really took off. It's kind of always weird to see with Tom Hezert. He always seemed to get a good ride and then never seemed to have anything come of it. And at this point in his career, I believe he's almost in his 40s, or is he almost 40 by this point? His career's kind of fizzled out a little bit, but it's good to see him come back. He's still got it. Like, he's still fast. He just doesn't have any sponsorship really behind him to improve his career, sadly. But good to see Tom back. Always good to see Venturini putting another car out there. So, yeah. We do have some new teams running this season. We have Last Chance Racing. I guess it must be a brand new team. Andrew Tuttle, we saw him run some races for the CART Idaho team last season in the West Series, will run full time this season in the West Series for Last Chance Racing. And Caleb Costner will run full time in the East Series this season for Last Chance Racing. So it's good. It's good to see a new team come into ARCA. And it's good to see that the 2 development series, not the development series, but the 2 other series will get a new team to race against. But we're going to shift our focus to the East Series because that's another question I've been seeing lately. What is the East Series going to look like for this season? That concerns me a little bit. All right, we know Wayne will more than likely be there doing the starting park. We know Andy will probably have 2 cars. We'll have Visconti, DGR. Who else? I really don't have anyone else who would run ARCA East full time. Oh, yeah, that's right. Steve Austin for Eric Caudell. I forgot about that. But man, who else does that really bring? I mean, will we even get 10 cars? I hope it does, because I don't like seeing small fields. But man, it really does make you wonder what the East Series is going to be like this year. I don't personally see Joe Gibbs Racing doing the East Series again. I just don't see it because, with only 7 races, only 4 of them being standalones. I just don't see it drawing. That new Smyrna race will get a decent field, probably around 18, 20 cars. But I'm talking about like the other 3, Pensacola, Nashville, and I forgot the third track. But Joey East was confirmed for full-time West, I believe, with the Naki Kluwer Motorsports team, not ARCA East. But I hope ARCA East does actually pull through and get some good teams for this season, because the series needs it, obviously. I, for one, mentioned earlier that we should just my idea is we scrap the East Series and merge that series into the Sioux Chief Short Track Showdown. Make the Sioux Chief Showdown the East Series, in my opinion. You can make that the East Series championship and combine that. That was my idea. But E-Series is still going by itself, but it doesn't look like we're having many cars. As for the West Series, I'm not concerned about the West Series at all. We saw by the end of the season that series could easily get 20 cars a race and put on some really, really good racing. So I'm not concerned about the West Series at all for 2022. If anything, I feel like the series is going to grow and be even more entertaining. Hell, I even went as far, sorry, excuse my language there for a second, but I even went as far to say that the West Series was the most entertaining series of 2022 for ARCA. The West Series outdid the main series for entertainment. That was my personal opinion, because watching all those young kids beat the crap out of each other on track was just, that's entertainment right there. But yeah, so what will the West Series look like? We won't know for sure. Obviously, the first race, ARC race of the season, actually is at New Smyrna. It's the Tuesday before the ARCA race. We'll have that Tuesday night race, and then, of course, we'll be going live the very next day with a review. But I'm looking forward to it. We only had 15 or 16 last year when I went, so hopefully we'll get a bigger field, but only time will tell when an entry list finally comes out. But obviously some exciting news for ARCA. As always, you love to hear the exciting news for ARCA. So if Brad's racing New Smyrna in the chat, I don't believe so. Brad would not do that. The car is New Smyrna is a pretty small track. The last thing that Brad wants is them running up behind him and pile driving him into the wall. So likely as Brad will not be at New Smyrna. Plus the payout just isn't worth it either, really. But this guy's guess for Daytona entry list, my guess is between 36 and 40 cars for as many we get. Underdog pick right now is Dave Mater. Likely winner, my guess is out of Venerini. So you guys can pick down in the chat or in the comments section who you think is going to win. Obviously, it's great to have ARCA back in full force. The entry list should be coming out early to mid February. So anyway, that kind of wraps up the ARCA portion of the show. We do have a little bit of NASCAR news that I wanted to cover. Even though this is the ARCA Racing podcast, I did want to talk about this NASCAR news. We won't spend much time on it, but if you guys want to hear my opinion, which doesn't really matter, but you guys want to listen to me anyway, some NASCAR news, let's talk about it. Ryan Vargas will return to JD Motorsports full-time in 2022. I think it's a great move. We saw Ryan struggle a lot last year, and I think that was a lot in part due to funding. A lot of races, they just didn't have the tires. They didn't have tires to compete, and it didn't matter how good the car was. Without tires, it doesn't matter. You're going to go slow. So hopefully Ryan will have some more sponsorship for this season where he can be more competitive and get some better runs for the JD Motorsports team. But it's good to see. Good to see Ryan come back. Kind of a funny thing that one of my buddies, NASCAR man, and I on Twitter, for any Starcom racing fans out there, they have a whole fleet of race cars up for auction. Iron Auctions is selling a whole fleet from Spire Motorsports, which contains a bunch of Starcom racing cars, including Derek Cope's last car, that started car he ran in the Daytona 500 last year. The body is still sitting on the chassis, and you can buy it as is. So for any Derek Cope fans, myself, go out there and bid on it. If you have enough money for a NASCAR chassis, if you want a badass lawn sculpture, go out and buy it. So that's a fun little shout out that we saw. Pretty cool that I saw in the chat that Tim Vines has a Chad Bryant car. That'd be pretty cool. Some more NASCAR news. Apparently, the money team is actually a real thing. Who knew? The money team apparently will run the Daytona 500 with Kaz Gralla. And apparently, it's the chassis that Starcom ran at the Charlotte Roval test, from what I've been hearing. Apparently, they bought that chassis, and that was just kind of a precursor So who knew? Who knew that the money team actually existed? But I have to admit, I am kind of like the people that I've been seeing online. When it comes to NY Racing and the money team showing up for the Daytona 500, I'll believe it when I see it. All right. When I see an actual picture of the car and when I see him show up to Daytona, that's when I'll believe it. Okay. I'm one of those people because we've seen these kinds of reports. I'll believe it when I see it. That's how I am. And I think a lot of people are kind of in the same boat. Until I see a picture, then I just don't believe it. My opinion. Could be as much as 5 open cars for Daytona right now. Noah Gragson, the 62. Timmy Hill in the 66, Jacques Villeneuve in the 27, the NY Racing team, and the money team. Who would go home in that perspective? Hopefully not Timmy. I don't want MBM to go home. I love the Beard Motorsports team, but hell, I'd like to see Noah Gragson miss the show again because I'm not really a big Noah Gragson fan. Sorry, I don't want to piss anyone off in the chat, but I'm not really a big Noah Gragson fan. So if he missed the show again for a second year, wouldn't really bother me all that much. Really wouldn't bother me to see Noah miss the show for the second year in a row. I don't want to piss anyone off, but I'm personally not a big fan of Noah Gragson. Last little bit of NASCAR news. The Clash entry list has come out for anyone who wants to go see it. It is on Bob Pockrace's on Twitter. It is the 36 chartered cars as predicted. Some pretty much the same drivers as expected. Some notable entries. The 77 is Landon Castle, which we did see some reports that Landon Castle would be driving the 77 in the races that Josh Bilicki is not. Bilicki is only scheduled to do about 25 races in the 77. Landon's not scheduled to do the other 11, but is scheduled to run the car, I believe, in the Daytona 500. If I'm not correct on that, someone correct me. But I believe Landon's going to be running at least a couple of races in that car. Ryan Preece will be in the 15. And, of course, Cody Ware will be in the 51. Cody Ware will be running full-time for his dad again this season and hopefully does a better job. As for the other entries, you guys pretty much know how it goes. You guys have seen them all online. But anyway, that's kind of the NASCAR news portion. I didn't want to talk too much about it, but I thought I'd mention that real quick. Anyway, ARCA's back in full motion for 2022. I'm here. 34 races this season between all 3 series. Can't wait. It's going to be fun. We got a couple weeks to go until the season officially starts. And I'll be here right with you guys, and I hope you guys are willing to join me. Thank you guys for enjoying the return episode of the ARCA Racing Podcast for 2022. So to everyone, have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you all later. So long, guys.